Okay, so it's down to the last episode of Picard. We'll talk about it in a moment. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and I was thinking a lot about the Picard series, all three seasons, and there's been a lot of criticism of the first and second season, and it makes me think of a situation when I was a youngster. I was traveling with my parents and with another couple. We were going to Florida or someplace, and we stopped in a fairly fancy restaurant on the way. Now, I was used to at this time, there wasn't a whole lot of fast food around at that time. I mean, there were mom and pop burger joints, but mostly we wanted to stop and sit down. And where we would go to was usually roadside diners and things like this. It was safe to order a hamburger and be off. And in this particular case, they decided to go to a fancier restaurant. And I ordered a hamburger. And what they came back with was something that didn't look like a hamburger to me. This place was upscale, and the chef really didn't want to do something as mundane as a hamburger. And so what I got was toasted wheat bread with meat and the condiments and whatever on it, and a sprig of parsley around it to give it some presentation. I can appreciate what the chef was doing in hindsight, but at the time that just wasn't a hamburger. And I think that we see a lot of that in Star Trek. From the time that they started up New Trek, oh, this isn't Star Trek. They did that with the Next Generation, as a matter of fact. This isn't Star Trek. There's not Kirk and Spock. And the Enterprise doesn't look like it's made out of plywood, and so on. And there's been some talk about problems with lighting, and yeah, I agree that a lot of things are pretty much filmed in the dark these days to give it a little more, who knows what type of artistry that they're looking for in doing things like this. But when it comes down to it, an actor doesn't want to just do a hamburger every week, and so it's understandable that new series will come out that are, first of all, trying to hit a different kind of audience, and secondly, that are trying to do something different with the actors that are doing it. Actors love to act, and that is to play different things. If everybody wanted to be the same thing every day, they'd do what the rest of us do, which is pretty much be ourselves. But in the case of this particular season of Picard, they're giving us the hamburger. Now, the hamburger itself doesn't taste exactly like it did when we were kids, but I don't know that our tastes are the same as was when we were kids. I find in my own case, I'm the same age as LeVar Burton. Now, he was one of the younger members of the cast, but even the older members were not that much older than me. And so I can understand where the story goes now. These people are all dealing with having been in these roles, and the characters have been these people for over 30 years. So we've kind of grown with them. So that all said, I'd like to say that the hamburger that they've presented us here is actually pretty good. If it was played by another group of people, I don't know that I would see it the same way. The way this worked out, the show was 62 minutes. The last 20 minutes was in the various updates of what everybody was doing. Now, it's good action adventure up to then. The Enterprise goes to the Borg cube. They find Jack. They find him linked to the Borg. They find the Borg Queen. That certainly tells us that the face that we saw in the gelatinous communicator that Vadik had was in fact the Borg Queen. And the last of the mysteries are taken care of at this point. And so all they have to do is break the link, and everybody else goes back to normal, and they save the day. And so while there are a couple of good lines in here where Picard says, I have to go, Riker says, I have to go with you, and Worf says, we'll make it a threesome. And Riker says, do you hear what you say? Nevertheless, after this is taken care of, and there's some tension in here, there's some revelation about the fact that the virus that was introduced to the Borg by Voyager has had its toll on this group of Borg, leaving us with nothing but Agnes Jurati's side band of Borg, which hopefully is much nicer to the Federation. But this essentially is the end of this group of Borg under this queen that imprisoned Picard and has caused the driving of plots pretty much ever since. And so it ends as you might expect. I find that it's interesting that they give the Enterprise the job that the Millennium Falcon had in eliminating the last Death Star, flying to the center of it and bombing the central reactor or whatever it was. Let's just call it the zone of special effects. And they know that it's going to take the rest of the cube and that they're all going to be beamed out okay. Well, that wasn't quite as certain. I was pretty much ready that Picard and Jack would die. Maybe Worf and Riker would make it, but it did not look like that was going to happen. And they made it a little bit too neat, honestly, but I'm not objecting to it. Once they've done this first 40 minutes of the show, then they go into the ending, and they start with Riker doing a captain's log, day one. We'll call it day one. And he basically says that, after everybody was cleared, they found the problem in the transporters, and they've put everybody back like they were, and whatever they did with the changelings, if they sent them back to the Gamma Quadrant or put them in jail, or who knows what they do these days. Didn't kill them, probably. That wouldn't be real Starfleet stuff. Nevertheless, there was that all wrapped up fairly nicely. And where that looks like the end, it's not, because they go from there to a year later. And that's when they are putting the Enterprise D back in the Starfleet Museum, where Geordi, Riker, and Picard are there to see it put in place as they turn off all the lights. And nicely, Geordi gets the last word on that. Then that's almost the end, but it doesn't. Then they jump to Picard and Beverly, who it was announced had been promoted to Admiral and made head of Starfleet Medical. They are basically taking Jack on his first day to school, is what it looks like, but actually driving him to his new ship, which appears to be the Titan. But turns out the Titan is rechristened as the Enterprise G, very fitting. And they go there where he's not sure what his role is going to be. He's a newly minted ensign. And Seven is now the captain, and Raffi is number one. And they have the LaForge on the con, and all seems to be well. And just as they're about to tell us what her catchphrase is going to be, they do it in a way that they did in the Avengers movie, where he says Avengers and they never finished the statement. There's also a nice bit in there where Worf makes his goodbyes to Rafaela and mentions that he's never wept. And it sounds like bluster, except for the fact that it was established in Star Trek VI that Klingons don't have tear ducts. So there's a very touching scene where Worf is saying goodbye to Raffi, and somehow it got out into the open of all the things that she's done for the Federation, which were supposed to be top secret. But Worf didn't admit to actually putting that out there, but it did give a lot of credit to Raffi in away from the previous tendency to think of her as kind of a ne'er-do-well. And so on the bridge of the new Enterprise, Seven mentions that it's interesting that a thief, a spy, and a pirate now have a ship of their own. And of course, it was very nice on how Seven got her command. She was highly recommended in a recording by Shaw before all of this started. The fact that she never really went by the book, but he would like to see the book that she writes. And of course, there was a very touching tribute to Seven by Shaw in his recommendation for captain, and fitting that Tuvok would be the admiral that gives her that assignment. Okay, so that's not the end either. So we now go to 10 forward, which Guinan is mentioned out of camera range, but not actually there. And after they've all had too much to drink, and Synthahol seems to have been forgotten completely, they go into a poker game. And I read somewhere that they filmed 45 minutes of this poker game. Most of it was ad-libbed. It was a way of catching the spirit of these people who've worked together for so long. And whether it's the characters, the actors, at this point, it doesn't matter. So, credits run, and then there's another ending. And that's when Jack is unpacking in his new quarters, which for an ensign is pretty good quarters. It's better than they showed in Lower Decks. And Q appears, saying, you're a chip off the old block, and I'm going to torment you now. So there's a lot of places for the story to continue. And it could go in a number of directions, not only with Seven and the Enterprise, but with Worf, with Geordi, with anybody that they want to bring back, if they do want to bring back somebody. It looks like it's a very rich field of which you can take just about anything from. And my hat's off to Terry Matalas for putting this all together. It was a very emotional ending. It was a very pleasing cap to this story. If other actors had done it, I don't think it would be nearly as effective, but the fact of the matter is that we know these people. We've known these people for most of our lives, and it works because we care about them, and that's what any kind of acting does. If you can care about the characters, then it doesn't matter what they do. I mean, how is it that the original series actors are so beloved despite the fact that about half of the shows that they did stunk? It's because we got used to these people. I was happy to hear Walter Koenig voiceover for the president of the Federation, Anton Chekhov. He is the son of Pavel Chekhov, and of course a tribute to Anton Yeltsin, who played Chekhov in the Kelvin universe. There were some people that we kind of missed not being there. I kind of thought that there might have been, in that after-credit scene, an opportunity for Wesley to come back and say, hey, hi, brother, we're watching you, or something like that. They decided against that. They didn't have much that they could do to bring back from other things, usually because of budgetary things, of hiring more actors, already a huge cast. But all in all, I think it was well done. It was the ending that we needed to the next generation, and fitting to where we've all come since then. So I want to know what you think about this. Please put it below, and of course, always, if you have not subscribed, please do. Strange New Worlds is coming up in June. We're going to be covering that. We're doing retro reviews on the original series, and we're here and there looking for interesting things to talk about. So you never know what we're going to come up with next. So please like the channel and subscribe and follow us so you know when the next video comes your way. And until then, thank you so much, and don't go far.